I do have to say, though, there is this inherent tension where finance wants to push teams to stretch to get to something, but like there's this small zone of like if you push it too far, you'll overcook the OKRs and you'll actually set people up for failure. How do you deal with that tension of setting aggressive but achievable goals?
Yeah, I think an important factor that's worth discussing is KPIs and OKRs are different. And it's
Oh,
okay.
can you say more about
It's
that?
okay to make them different. Let KPIs be KPIs and let OKRs be OKRs. I think a lot of times where you see that tension rise is because organizations feel like they need to make their KPIs profitability or cash flow, operating cash flow, or these sorts of things. They feel like they need to make that an objective. That's It's not really an objective. I mean, an objective is something very aspirational you want to do within this organization. If you achieve that, it ought to have a positive impact on your KPIs, but you shouldn't necessarily just mix those together. And so aspirational is good in an objective framework when it's not tied to a KPI. I'll give you an example. This last year we had an objective to double our ARR growth rate. The prior year, we were about an 8% ARR growth rate. And so we had set this aspirational objective of we want to double our ARR growth rate, so monetization flywheel. And we weren't exactly sure how we were going to do it. You need to sell stuff, you need to increase renewals, that sort of thing. But we didn't know the exact steps when we set that up. I mean, an objective is just a hypothesis at the beginning, and you want it to be aspirational, achievable, but aspirational. And so then we start to, whittle this down into, okay, that's the company wide and that's for the year. But then now let's break that down into a first quarter, a second quarter, a third quarter. And then underneath that, what are our department objectives that are going to ladder up to this? What's our customer success team going to do? What's our sales team going to do? What's our product team going to do to facilitate that? Happy to report that we ended up the year at a 22% growth rate. So we achieved this objective that at the beginning of the
Nearly
year,
tripled.
we were like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this or not. But it shows the power of setting an aspirational objective and then laddering things up and just, staying focused on it.
There's a lot to be said about specificity and focus. Is there a sweet spot for a number of OKRs? I'm just making up, is two too few and is 10 too many?
I think so. I think 3 to 4 is the right number for objectives. Now we've gotten into this routine where we have 3. We have a monetization flywheel objective, an audience flywheel, and a coverage. We used to have 4. We would add a people-focused objective. We thought that was important to do things that are focused on the kind of an HR focus, people-focused objective for the whole company. We've now iterated that down to now we say, no, we want to have a KR that's underneath one of our 3 objectives that's people-focused. So we figured out we could reduce that down to 3. I'm not saying 3 or 4 is the right number. I've just figured out for us, it feels like 3 or 4 is about right.
But thinking through it, that doesn't mean you can't have multiple KRs for each objective, right?
Yeah. Each objective, again, and so numbers on that. What we have found is you don't want to have more than about 5 KRs, key results. So you really need to spend a lot of time figuring out the specificity on that, and is it measurable, and is it driving the correct behavior, where if you hit these 5 things, then yes, that objective is going to be met. So 3 to 4 objectives is what I would recommend, and I wouldn't recommend going more than 5 or 6 KRs under each objective.
That's really helpful. That's what people come to the pod for, the inside baseball there. Bill, and now in reflection, after writing down this question, I may be asking you more of a budgeting question, so you can take this however you want. But I was thinking through the OKR process of how you want to be rigorous about hitting numbers and setting yourself up for success. But at the same time, you put a plan down, it doesn't always go exactly how you thought. How do you leave room for failing, like you said? And I guess the more positive way would be, how do you leave room for innovation?
Yeah. For those, it's important that you do think about the fact that curveballs are going to come in. If you have an engineering team and they're building a new whatever, and for this objective, well, things are going to pop up. The website may go down, and they're going to have to scramble and stop innovating and stop whatever to fix these things. So you need to make sure that you're working with your product team, with your teams, to make sure they allocate time for them to do the things that we aren't considering. And still be able to hit the objective, because there's nothing more defeating than to sign up for an objective. The team gets super excited about it. We're reporting on it in our all hands meetings every week. We use the software to report these things so that anybody in the company can see where we're at any given time on our OKRs. And there's nothing more defeating than to get everybody fired up about that. And then all of a sudden you get pulled off onto something else that is taking up your time. And the whole company is sitting there looking at this thing standing still, or going from, it's okay to now it's at risk, to now it's behind. So you need to account for those things within the process.
Do you think that all company level OKRs should have derivatives at every department level, or should some of them only tie to certain departments?
I do think that they all department level OKRs ought to ladder up to company wide objectives. Are there company wide objectives that not every department is going to ladder up to? I think so. I think that's okay.
That's immediate what I was getting at, because sometimes I sit there and I'm like, how can I in finance impact this this engineering objective?
Yeah, we run into that a lot in finance, because again, we're a support staff. So a good thing is it forces us as a finance function to go be part of cross-functional teams. So now go join in on the sales and marketing team meeting and listen for ways how you can add value. That's what I want to do as a CFO. Yeah. And as I lead an organization, is have an organization where we're viewed as an organization that adds value. We're not just reporting numbers at the end of the day, and nobody hears from us except for every 90 days, and we report the numbers, and here's the report card. I want us to be viewed as partners within the organization where we're adding value. So figure out, okay, they're talking about doing these things. What are the reporting requirements that we could help out with through the systems that we have, that they're not going to have time to do that, but so that we can actually measure this KR, but also give them updates along the way is more of the approach that we take in finance. But I do think the more departments you can have laddered up to a company-wide objective, the better, and the more likely it's going to succeed.
Bill, why do you think OKRs fail? Can you pick out one or two reasons why? I mean, you've been through a number of cycles.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that. The first thing I would say is failure is not always bad. You heard me say that at the beginning, so don't fall into that cycle. But the reason why I see things fail or are poorly worded KRs, you didn't have the right KRs in place. So yeah, you hit all these KRs and everything was tracking just fine, and then you get to the end of the time where it's supposed to be done and it's not done. Well, we missed it on our KRs then. So poorly worded KRs, the curveballs that we talked about, where everybody's fired up to work on this product plan, this sort of thing, and then all of a sudden something happens. It may be too soon, but tariffs go out and that has an impact on the market. And we built our OKRs and we weren't thinking that was going to happen. So a lot of times it's things outside of our control. It's not always things within our control. So you have to allow and give yourself some time and some space in there to operate with things that are not always going to be in your control, is what I would recommend. But that's typically why I see things fail: poorly worded or conflicting things that were focus areas.
Yeah. Well, with that context, do you think it's okay to have to rewrite or to kill off an OKR mid-quarter?
I do. You don't want to make a habit of doing that all the time, or else it loses its strength within the organization. I'm more of a fan of rewriting an OKR versus just killing it altogether. Say, hey, we missed it on this when we built this. We're 30 days in. We don't want to just continue to make everybody keep focusing on something that we know it was poorly worded or it's not the right focus. Let's don't waste everybody's time, but let's refine this and make this meet where we are and still a good outcome for us and make the best use of everybody's time. Sometimes you have to kill one. It was just, and again, that's okay. These are hypotheses. These are supposed to be aspirational hypotheses, and you don't know till you start doing the work whether it was a good hypothesis or not. So
I like that term and that label, hypothesis, because it's so true. Well, last question on OKRs here, and it's a bit tactical, I have to admit, but where do you track your OKRs?
Yeah. This is the easiest question you've asked so far. We use 15.5. I don't know if you're familiar with 15.5. It's a SaaS platform. We use 15.5. They have a good objective and key result functionality within there. We also use that within our organization for check-ins. So weekly check-ins are done through that. We do employee engagement surveys through it. So there's a number of things that we do there. And the good thing about that is, again, everybody's doing a check-in every Friday on these things. And they got their name. I don't work for 15.5, but shameless plug. They got their name 15.5 because the way they set it up is it should take an employee 5 minutes a week to do what they need to do in that system. And it ought to take a manager 15 minutes a week to do what they need to and review what their employees are submitting. So check-ins, pulse checks, that sort of thing. Well, part of the check-in, when you do the check-in, is it's going to ask for an update on all of your objectives and key results that you're an owner of. And again, our process on OKRs is we have company-wide, we have departmental, but we also want every individual in our organization to have at least 3 objectives. So, and we want you to have to at least 2 that ladder up to a departmental goal or to a company-wide goal, and then 1 that is purely individual. It's going to be self-development or professional development or something like that. It could be, you want to train and run a 10K, but that's okay. We want you to have something very individual, and then 2 that ladder up to a departmental or company-wide. And so again, because it's all in one system, that helps tremendously. And then I hate to admit it, but it also helps a whole lot when we get to our annual reviews each year, because now we've been collecting this data all year, and we can know how people did against objectives and key results and check-ins and things that they were saying that they were having success with and failures with. And that can all easily get incorporated into annual reviews.
Yeah, don't make OKRs harder than they need to be.
Exactly.
You got to meet your customer where they want to transact, for lack of a better term.
That's right.
Run the Numbers is a mostly LLC production. Yelling an intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by some AI thingamajig. Podcast and video editing is done by Cleancast at cleancast.io. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses, LOL. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And also check out mostlymetrics.com. That's my newsletter where I explore business models and financial metrics. Thanks for riding with me. Share this with your friends. Peace.